So now, let's send it over to Ben Thomas for another installation of School Me. Ben, take it away.
Well, thank you, Sam, and welcome back to the classroom. In the segment before, you talked about the importance of things like audio, but what happens when it doesn't work exactly how you would expect it to, which is why we've got our next guest on, and that's Rebecca Sullins, to talk a little bit about audio troubleshooting. And Rebecca, I think the best place to start from a troubleshooting standpoint in audio is a meaningful understanding of signal flow. Why is it so important to understand the signal flow of your system before you could ever even start troubleshooting?
It's so much easier when... Let's just be honest. We are not infallible as much as I claim to be and like to pretend that I am. Nobody is infallible. Things are going to fail. So when you're looking at your system and trying to pinpoint where the issue is, understanding signal flow is vital because you need to narrow down where the problem is, right? It's just like if you've got a hose and you've got something leaking, you want to start at one end and figure out where that leak is, right? So you want to start at your sources, your microphones, your inputs, your whatever. Work your way down, narrow down, and omit as many of the components as you can and see where your issue is.
Well, Rebecca, I want to ask, right? We've got a lot of conversations happen this week, obviously, about things like AV over IP. How would you say that signal flow differs a little bit between the IP side of things and the traditional analog?
Oh, totally different animals. So with the traditional analog signal flow, obviously you're going to go from microphone to mixer to amplifier to loudspeaker, right? You've got a distinct signal flow. With networking, everything is omnidirectional, I'm even going to say. You could have one device that goes into a network switch and you don't really know where it goes from there. So in that case, my biggest tip is always to divide and conquer, right? Start in the middle of with your main hub, with your network switch or whatever. See if you can figure out which half of your system is malfunctioning and you've just omitted 50% of the things that you have to troubleshoot.
You know, Rebecca, what's interesting when we talk about troubleshooting, I think a lot of folks will take their technological and engineering brain and say, oh, it's the technology that's not working, it's something wrong with this. How can you kind of leverage some of those expertise in technology and maybe say, hey, you know, maybe it isn't the mic that's not working, maybe it's the firewall, or maybe it's something else?
So this one's always difficult, especially for us people that like to overthink things, right, a lot. I may or may not be guilty of this myself. But, you know, one of my college professors always said, KISS, keep it simple, stupid, right? So when you start troubleshooting, we tend to overthink. We tend to start making adjustments. We tend to start messing with things. We tend to start turning knobs and yada, yada, yada. So my biggest thing with that is zero everything out. Zero out your knowledge, go back to the basics. Look at your signal flow, zero out your gain, zero out any settings, just start with a level playing field and omit as many variables as possible before you start troubleshooting, or else you're trying to troubleshoot with 100 variables involved, right? It's impossible.
Well, what's interesting too, part of the best troubleshooting tactic, in my opinion, is a really good design, right? Because you can isolate things, you're not really dependent on making a couple different hops and conversions and things like that. How would you implement kind of the design side of things into effective troubleshooting into the long term?
Oh, my big and this is where part of my passion lies, document it. Because you can have the best design in the world, but if you don't document it properly and nobody knows what that design is doing, it's impossible to troubleshoot that system, right? So that's my big thing. Design it, but make sure, number one, everything is logical, which you should theoretically be doing in the design process anyway, but document everything so that the people that are troubleshooting this system have a roadmap, right? Because I can drive from here to Tennessee by just heading east, but it's going to take a lot longer if I don't have a map.
You know, what's interesting, I talked about sort of that IT convergence a little bit, which I'm sure we've heard a million times already this week. But a lot of the IT-centric folks now have to take accountability for acoustical devices and things like audio distribution and miking. How would you say that world really could come into the world of the troubleshooting without the basic understanding, even in some cases, about traditional acoustics?
Okay, so this is a large topic. I could go down this rabbit hole for days and days and days. But my big thing there is, we as AV people are merging into IT. We need to know the pieces that we need to know. They need to know just enough about AV to understand what kind of traffic we are now putting on all of their systems, right? So my big thing with troubleshooting, especially with an IT guy, is learn enough so that you can speak to them, so that you can understand what they're saying, so that you can properly communicate your needs and say, hey, look, I've got this issue, this is the type of device, this is the traffic that it is spitting out, this is the port it's on, and they can help you troubleshoot, right? Like, because 90% of the time, especially in technology, the battle comes with knowing what you don't know and knowing what you do know and being able to say, hey, look, this is exactly what I know. This is the issue I'm having. Now I need your help to find out where it is.
Well, would you say a lot of these best practices also apply to the world of video as well?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. As much as I hate to say it, audio and video really are two sides of the same coin here, right? I've been doing this long enough to remember when us and the lighting guys were still fighting about who was going to take over projection in the theater. I don't know how we lost this battle, but we did, and the sound guys ended up with it. But video, absolutely, and even higher bandwidth, right? Worse traffic. The IT guys don't like us, but it is, you still need to learn what kind of traffic and bandwidth and latency and needs and stuff that you're putting out there so that you can get help when something goes wrong, because it's going to.
Well,
Right?
and those are the things that the IT folks typically know really well, right? You talk about that bandwidth, the utilization, things like switches, building firewalls, all sorts of different things. They're really, really good at that, right? So if we could teach them just a couple of those base practices. Now, I want to ask, you had some great resources last time you were on. Where would you recommend that people kind of start, whether it's researching or getting certified on a lot of these topics and conversations? Where should people go first?
Oh, gosh. So troubleshooting is such a wide, broad brush to stroke with that it's a little bit difficult. But my biggest thing is talk to your designer, talk to your engineer, learn your documentation, right? Learn your processes, learn how to read those drawings, learn how to do all of these things. That's step number one. And I am always a huge proponent of go get your CTS, go to your AV networking classes, go learning the very fundamental and basics of how this technology works will really help you be able to understand the why when stuff starts to fail. And it's going to.
I'll tell you what, Rebecca, we've enjoyed having you on the show a couple of times. I know people might have some questions, not only about best practices in troubleshooting, audio design, video layouts, things like that. How can people reach out to you?
You can find me. I might be the only Rebecca Sullins in the world. You can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter, or you can email me directly at rebecca.sullins@ampthink.com, AMP like an amplifier, think.com. And yeah, please reach out. I love giving my opinion on everything.
Well, Rebecca, thanks so much for joining us today, and thank you guys for tuning in to School Me. It's been one of my favorite segments so far this week. I'll tell you what.